Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And today, we're going to be talking a little bit more about some of the effects of coronavirus, COVID-19, but we're going to be doing a lot of just general business discussion too. So this is going to be so much fun. We are speaking with someone in Tel Aviv. I've never had a guest in Tel Aviv. This is so much fun. I love this. I love that the program reaches people worldwide because we're all in business, and business anymore. And we were talking about this before the program. It overlaps. You know, there's nothing that's really just very specific. You know, what happens in one place happens in another place, and you know, innovations here also roll out to other areas. Things like that. And so that's what's so much fun about this. And so we are going to have so much fun today. As we are recording this, we are right in the middle of the quarantines, the restrictions, all of those various things. So when this airs, you know, things might not be quite as timely, but we're still going to make it as timely as we can with the conversation. So please join me in welcoming Yael Shafrir to our program today. Welcome.
Thank you, Deb. Great to be here.
Great. Well, let me tell people just a little bit about you, and then we'll just really jump into this. So Yael Shafrir is the Chief Marketing Officer of Meet in Place, a global network of innovative meeting spaces designed for an urban boutique hospitality experience. The Meet in Place philosophy is rooted in meeting science, as every design feature and amenity offered serves a unique purpose to make meetings as productive as possible. Prior to this role, Yael was the Vice President of International Partnerships at Disney-backed storytelling platform Playbuzz. In this role, she oversaw the creation of international growth opportunities within strategic markets to execute the company's evolvement strategy. Yael boasts a strong background in business development within the realm of digital media, where she has utilized her past as a journalist and content specialist. Prior to her role at Playbuzz, she was Vice President of Business Development for Trendline Group, where she focused on the company's cross-media activity, using its digital assets to grow its tangible business. So again, Yael, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Great. Well, you know, what I love, there's, you know, I always love talking to my guests and getting to know them, but you have definitely worked in the global market, you know, not just in Israel. And so that's great. But, you know, as we were chatting before, the whole coronavirus thing and how companies function afterwards, I think is going to be very different. You know, and it's funny. I have this discussion with my husband, who works for one of the big companies, where, you know, they have offices, they go in, they have their little cubicles. Of course, now they're all working from home. And my philosophy is that many big companies are going to look at things, and I think this is something around the world. They're going to look at all of this. They've had everybody working from home fairly successfully. And I think they're going to go, do we really need to have all of this big meeting space? And I think more and more, they're going to look towards companies like yours to say, you know what? We don't need to have entire office buildings. We don't need to have even, you know, floors of buildings. We might need a location, you know, in some places, but, you know, do we really need to do that? And it's funny because we actually had you scheduled to be on the program before all of this really started, because the trend has been where we're starting to have these type of places where companies go and they rent temporary space for a day, a week, you know, whatever, and they have their meetings. So I thought this was very interesting that, holy schmoly, now this is really something that could take off.
Totally. Totally. So first, thank you. Yeah, great minds think alike.
Mhm.
What you thought, like what you described with your husband, is
Mhm.
exactly what we think is
Mhm.
going to happen.
Mhm.
Obviously, nobody knows. Like what we do is we talk to our partners, we talk to a lot of
Mhm.
our affiliates, people who see like what companies are doing at
Mhm.
scale, and we also believe that at least part of the companies will stick to working from home
Right.
because it's more efficient,
Mhm.
because it saves a lot of time, because it's more ecological,
Mhm.
because it taps into an existing trend of, some associated with millennials,
Mhm.
some associate with well-being, and it's about work-life balance, and
Mhm.
the ability to work at least partly from home
Mhm.
is tapping into that.
Mhm.
So we do believe that once companies shift in parts to working from home, they
Mhm.
will need to develop a new managerial
Mhm.
routine. And we, Meeting Place, want to be the place where these managerial routines, whether
Mhm.
weekly sessions, bi-weekly,
Mhm.
monthly, whatever it is, take place. Meaning that, let's say that I have a startup of 30 people that are working in different places.
Mhm.
We can meet as a management once a month.
Mhm.
The team can meet I don't know, twice a month or
Mhm.
once a week, and we want to provide a platform for them to meet as safely as possible. What does
Right.
it mean? First of all, like all Meeting Place venues are located on at the first floor.
Mm.
It originally comes from an isolated one
Mhm.
from us wanting to kind of get the street vibe, the street energy into the venue.
Mhm.
So we have big windows and the scenery of the street.
Mhm.
And now it also allows us to not use the elevator.
Right.
So
Right.
people can,
And another one of those safety features. Mhm.
exactly. And we definitely understand that, it's not only about being socially responsible, it's really understanding that, if we don't do this, we might be looking at an endless outbreak,
Mhm. Mhm.
which means that, nobody will have business for
Right.
longer periods. So we
Mhm.
really do want to take part and be active
Mhm.
in maintaining, and making sure that
Mhm.
disease doesn't spread further.
Mhm.
And so obviously all this, the required sanitation, a gold
Mhm.
standard sterilization, like
Mhm.
after every meeting, every button, all
Mhm.
those. Also, all the required sanitation
Mhm.
materials, like,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
hand creams, the wipers,
Right. Mhm.
those, the masks, the like as few team members as possible, but still enough
Mhm.
to maintain everything we need to
Right.
keep
Right.
these standards. And also we deployed like a cute thing. We thought, how will we reduce people wandering around? Because of the
Ah.
experience, the
Mhm.
service is a big thing at Meeting Place.
Mhm.
So we just designed new door handles.
Mm.
So whenever you need like whatever it is, like refill water
Mhm.
or extend the meeting, or I don't know, help with the tech
Mhm.
amenity, or I don't know, operate the new digital mindfulness sessions that we deployed
Mhm.
to help people kind of kick off in a more focused, calm
Mhm.
way.
Mhm. I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah, and it was interesting. One of the things that I thought of when you were talking about this was the cleaning of the facility, and when it's a place that you have leased, like an office space like yours, there's not a lot of personal items there. There's no personal items there.
Mhm.
It's decorated, it's very pretty, but that's pretty easy to keep clean. When when you have an office with people with their offices, their cubicles, their desks, their whatever they have, they've got all their stuff. And it's, let's be honest, it's hard to keep the stuff clean. And
Mhm.
how do you tell employees, you know what, you really can't have the pictures of your family anymore, or you need to clean your own space? And some people are going to clean their own space better than anybody ever would, but then there are other people who go, okay, it's clean. And so having a space where you go and that it is clean and has been sanitized has got to be a big benefit, as opposed to who sat in this chair last and where'd that keyboard come from, and ugh.
Totally, totally. Where this is, one of the first thing we started deploying the standards of sanitation, and by now we're fully ready. Although we can open in London and in the US
Right.
yet, but we're going to start, seeing how it works with, for example, thermometers at the desk. So people come in before they come in. We want to make sure that
right. You don't go any further till you make sure you don't have a temperature.
Exactly. So we're going to kick off all the practices here in Tel Aviv, which is something a lot of startups do. So, we have a beta site for sanitation,
right?
Which is interesting. Yeah. And then we're going to, once everything opens up in London and the US, we'll see how we can adapt to that. And it's also, I think, we see ourselves as a partner of our clients in leading business culture. And before coronavirus, our major focus was HR, was making sure companies are able to retain talent, to engage and develop the talent, and first of all to win the talent, and by now it's becoming very hard to stick to that. But our current goal is obviously to check all the boxes of sanitation, and also be to stick to our original goal of providing an innovative space that is productivity driven, and that's why we have the mindfulness session and the communication methodology and other things. Like online lectures, that we have a partnership with Jolt, which is another Israeli company. Is, let's say you can enrich your schedule with an external expert.
Oh, okay.
But on top of that, I think we also want to make sure that HR, human resources or human capital of companies get the right like the basic conditions to be successful. And I think enabling the path to go back to business, I'm not saying normal, but to go back to business and not necessarily spend all your day at home with your pajamas. Part of it, definitely. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I totally like, sticking to my t-shirt and staying at home for a little bit. But still, we want to kind of create a path that allow people to meet again, to maintain their teamwork, to develop new methodologies of working together in this new era of employment. And we don't know where it's going, but it definitely requires, the face time to kind of make the adjustment. And it always go back to the fact that when people meet face to face, they develop relationship. And this is something that is, like, I think, like missing the most in the online relationship, because you don't go out for you don't go out for a cigarette, or you don't talk near the coffee machine. So I think the offline routines that will start like slowly being part of the back to business programs are something that we want to make sure to keep. And for that reason, we are willing to go far and beyond to make sure that we meet, that we are fully compliant and much more than that.
Right. And you mentioned face-to-face, and technology has obviously just really leaped ahead in the last couple of months with things like Zoom, what we're doing here. And this is great. I mean, I love this. I love being able to see my guests, to be able to talk to them. I've started a thing that we've been doing on Tuesdays with using Zoom with an online networking kind of group. And we've had, roughly 8 to 9 people every time from, various places in the United States. And so that's great. And I think more and more people, especially because of fear of contamination, things like that, will do things like this. But you also mentioned true face-to-face, where we're in the same room with someone. And, and that really does make a huge difference, because that's where you talk about what you watched on TV last night. Or, you mentioned that your meeting spaces are street level. So you're going to look at it and you go, oh my gosh, look at that, or whatever. And, maybe we'll get a little bit less business done, because we're kind of having those side conversations, but those side conversations are what build the relationships. And whether it's with your employees or customers or partners or whatever, I think we're going to be using Zoom, but I think we have to go back to true face-to-face also.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think, actually, I always encourage my team, and tell them that it's okay to have a little chat that is outside of the agenda, right? It's okay to look at things and, have it trigger a short discussion or an idea or a thought. And I think, taking those little moments outside of our business culture it's not making us more productive.
Right.
Like, breaks are, an essential part of being productive in the other 50 minutes of the hour.
Right.
So if you don't have those 10 minutes, it's a problem, and it won't make you productive. It will make you totally stressed. And I think actually some of the, I don't know if we go into tips at a certain point, that I think 45 minutes instead of an hour is a very good thing, because then you allow yourself to take the extra 15 minutes and, either at the beginning or at the end, and allow yourself to just have a conversation. We're still humans, we need those kind of things.
Right.
And regarding the face-to-face, I think I totally agree that it's not necessarily the most productive way to have everyone in the office all the time, and working together all the time, or working in their cubicles all the time. We waste one. We already discussed it, but I can't really imagine companies skipping face-to-face completely.
Yeah, and it really is going to be interesting. I wonder too how many companies, now that they've kind of been switching their business models, figuring things out, will say, maybe we don't actually need employees. Maybe we need contractors. Maybe we need freelancers. Maybe we need business partners. So talk a little bit more about that, because I know that's something that you guys wrote a blog post on.
Right. According to predictions that me and my colleagues and also some partners of us are reading, the projection is that within 10 years, 70% of the workforce will be freelancers. It's crazy, right? And at the beginning, when I started hearing this, it sounded kind of far. But, as we discussed earlier, the coronavirus outbreak kind of accelerates all processes. So it might take less than 10 years to see this. But it also taps into all these trends that we started seeing that has to do with, keeping our planet in a better shape, and keeping our health, both physical and mental, in a better shape. And first of all, these are the projections. Second of all, from what we hear about COVID-19 and about other trends, this is being accelerated as we speak. And also we believe that it means that we're going to see a different freelancer. The freelancer we know now and the freelancer we're looking at in 10 years is going to be probably a different persona in terms of everything from lifestyle to salaries, or to not a salary, but to income. And when we as Meeting Place are looking ahead, we are starting to think of how to provide solutions to this type of rising target audience. For example, we're looking into offices without commitment, like the daily office or hourly office. Let's say I'm a freelancer. I have lots of meetings in town. I don't want to travel.
I just need Tuesday.
Just need Tuesday. I want to schedule some client meetings at a specific place. I don't want to go to the offices of my clients because I don't have to. If I'm a freelancer,
and I might have more than one client.
Definitely. And I don't want to risk myself, and I don't want to waste time. And I'm in a position where I can, I can call the shots. Maybe beforehand, maybe now, the freelancer has to come to his client. But maybe when freelancers are the majority of the workforce, and, everybody works like this, then the power shifts to the side of the freelancers, and he gets to, to set the terms. So we are working both in terms of outreach and in terms of business models. We're preparing ourselves to work with the freelancers target audience. By the way, it's very diverse. So, when we think about freelancers, we always think about designers and, writers and potentially, developers and the startup ecosystem driven occupations. But let's think about consultants. Let's think about coaches. Let's think about these people that host their own sessions, their own, away days, training days. And they are becoming a very good middleman for us when bringing our business, because they need a place they can trust.
Right.
They need like a second home. They don't want to go into a hotel. They don't want to go into a different place each time. So they want to come to at least, like, we have 6 venues, so it's not necessarily the same place, but it's a partner they can trust. They know our sanitation standards on one hand, but they also know our service and our commitment to their success.
Right. And let's be honest, hotels, it's kind of hit and miss. We don't want to bash any hotels. I mean, there are obviously many hotels that do wonderful meeting spaces, but it's also the space where they're going to do a wedding, where they're going to do, a variety of different things. So the equipment is going to vary. It's actually going to vary with how it's set up. Now, yes, some of them have very specific, like a boardroom or something like that, and where it's always going to look the same, but that is the tricky thing. So say you are someone like me who's giving presentations, and I need, 30 people to come in and take my training. Going to a hotel is just really not going to work. It's in many cases probably going to be cost prohibitive. That's going to be one of the big things, because hotels just charge a lot. I mean, they have a lot of overhead that they're having to cover. But they might not have the technology that I need. And of course, that's what's so critical. How many times have we been to meetings in hotels where something has happened? The projector went down, the Wi-Fi that went down, the whatever. And if you can even get somebody on the phone, they don't know what to do, because that's not their skill set. So to be able to go to a place that is 100% dedicated to meetings, and there are certainly other companies besides yours, but to be able to go to that, right there, you've got that level of expertise.
Yeah. And again, I think it's about, like, if this is your expertise and you're part of this industry, and part of this industry also means that you get the first feedback that sometimes is, unfortunately, at the moment, we cannot have our next meeting is in the next couple of months, because there is a new policy binding it. So we get it, and then we need to deal with it, and then we need to think how we, for example, what would be the first need that we don't have. So we do have like conference call capabilities, right? Video calls. But now that we understand that almost every meeting will have somebody from the outside, it means for us that we need like better speakers, because, if it's in every meeting and we have and people are also like separated from each other, and we want everybody to hear well. So we upgraded like we brought in more speakers, and we have a new set of cameras that are, moving according to the speaker. So make sure it looks well on Zoom. So you don't have like the whole table. You have the person who's and so on. So to your point, totally agree that, hotels are great and there are partners. A lot of hotels are sending their clients or business clients to meeting place. So definitely do not bash any hotel, and we stay at them all the time. But I think in terms of specializing in the needs of people that meet each other for work purposes, we are trying to really understand where the biggest concerns are right now, and mitigate any gap that is existing.
Right. And so when we have freelancers, and I'm a freelancer, I'm a consultant. A lot of times when I go to meet with a client, it's Starbucks, it's in their facility, which that's okay. But, I might meet a bunch of people in Starbucks, and you just don't get a lot of good business done then, right? Because you might need some technology, and then granted, some of the places have Wi-Fi and things, but it's just not the right level. And here in the United States, we've had some shared workspace type of places, but they didn't seem to quite be working out either. And so it's interesting because as a freelancer, as we were saying before, we might go into a city and need to meet with 6 different people. And we want to do it in one place. And we certainly don't want to be in Starbucks having 6 different, meetings with people and all these, different cups of coffee. So it's great to have a space like yours to be able to go in and just have that space and have it just for Tuesday.
Yeah, that's the whole idea. It started with our CEO trying to set a meeting with this big clients of him back in the days where he was chief innovation and product for SodaStream, and then being unable to schedule something for a meeting room in a hotel, obviously super expensive as you mentioned, and also takes a lot of bureaucracy and faxing and stuff like that. And then ended up with the idea of him, of finding a good idea for his next gig. So totally agree. We believe that Starbucks is great, but not necessarily the greatest place for business. Not necessarily the greatest place for freelancers on one hand to conduct their daily work, and for the clients on the other hand. And again, we think that we were able to find a business model that allow us to provide a much better product, including all tech amenities and privacy, and it's different rooms that are closed with a door and a curtain if you want to keep your privacy,
right?
And great looking ergonomic furniture. Our sofas are kind of, you have your own unit, so you keep your personal space with the sofa. Every detail is well thought, and it will cost you pretty much like it will cost you if you take your guests to Starbucks and everybody has a soda and a coffee.
And you don't get that really bad caffeine buzz.
Yeah. No, but by the way, in meeting place, we do have the coffee machine in every room, and the premium coffee, and also you get your water, sparkling water in the room. The idea is to save time, so you don't get people to go out of the room to make a coffee, but it's also good in terms of coronavirus compliance.
Right, yeah, so it's in individual items, things like that. Well,
Exactly.
and the other thing with having lots of freelancers, so say we have a company that now they have 10 employees. They figure out, okay, we only need 5 employees and 5 freelancers. They, and maybe we don't need a place to meet, or we don't need an office. And here in the United States, there's actually very specific laws as to, if you are a consultant, if you're a freelancer, having a space in your client's office. And it's tax reasons. I have a friend who is a consultant who was with a company enough that they said, hey, we want to put you at a desk. We want, because we want more access to you, all those various things. Well, that's great. But then the IRS says, well, no, that's called an employee. And you need to have been, doing taxes, things like that. So, that's the other thing is, you could be a freelancer, you could be a consultant, you could be, whatever, but you don't have a space, in their space. And so that's where you need to have that meeting space.
Right, and it's actually a write-off. Like you can,
Right.
you can become, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we've been talking, obviously a lot about the fact of coronavirus. One of the things that I've discovered is people are really figuring out different partnerships. And maybe it's because we have a little, I don't want to say downtime because we're supposed to be working, but we have time to be thinking about these things. So it's like, oh, what if we offered this, or what if we did that? And so what we're doing is then, of course, we're reaching out to people around the world, for whatever it is that we're needing. And again, every once in a while, you need to be in a physical location to meet. And so that's where you need to have a meeting space somewhere.
Mhm. I think you're spot on when it's saying, first of all, that we are thinking more. That people, yeah, a lot of people by nature, they act. It doesn't mean that they know what they're doing. It doesn't mean that they, that they rethink every time they do something. They just do what they are used to doing. And I think like these kind of events force us to look at what we do and think whether it's the right choice, or whether what we are used to doing is not necessarily relevant anymore. And I think partnership, to me, I used to be a VP international partnerships for Playbuzz. I'm a great believer in partnerships. I believe that partnerships are the future, and everything that's happening right now is only the beginning. And I think that companies just need to be more creative about one, saving resources, and kind of preparing themselves, and acknowledging the up and coming recession. And then also they understand that they want to be global, but they can't fly. So how will they do that? So it makes sense. And this also, I feel like the COVID-19 is a horrible thing, obviously. Like the amount of death, the amount of what's going on with people's day to day, and especially the older people. But also, I also have a background disease, so I sympathize with you, and I understand what you're talking about. It is uncomfortable, but I do think that it forces us to pay the price now for not listening earlier. So, for example, ecological issues. So,
yeah. Do we need these huge offices? Do we need to be driving? I mean, that's been one of the things that's been interesting, are the maps now showing that how much pollution is going down. And again, that's just because people were getting in their cars and driving to their office, getting in your car, driving to your office. Okay, nice. Well, can we home office and then just meet in one central place every once in a while?
For sure. I totally believe, again, that this one is a change for the better. And we're going to see a lot of these partnerships that will help us change for the better. And that we wouldn't have done it if we didn't have this corona outbreak, unfortunately, because we would still think in terms of exponential growth, business exponential growth, not sickness, like contagious diseases, exponential growth. So I think it forces us to be more creative and to actually think of how we're not the sole winners of a specific situation, but we actually want other people to be part of what we do. And then we need to choose the right partners. It's also a tough mission, but I think it will eventually do a lot of good.
Right. Yeah, because the way we've been working is with the premise of that's the way it's always been done. And that is it. We always had a big office where it was central and everybody came in and everybody worked 8 to 5-ish. And it's funny because you mentioned millennials and millennials, bless their heart, that's a Southern thing, get a very bad rep. Because I think so many of them are such hard workers, all sorts of things, but they are making us rethink things, because a big part of it is them saying, you know what, I can get a lot more done between 8 p.m. and midnight than going into an office. And, and they're saying, hey, we can telecommute, we can work from home. And there's a big enough bunch of them, that when they all say it, businesses have to pay attention. So that was kind of trickling out, where we were seeing that as long as the work was getting done, it didn't really matter. Well, of course, now we are forced to work from home. And there will obviously always be businesses where people have to come in. I mean, for whatever whatever it is, they have to be there. But
is one.
Right. Yeah. But, I think many of them really are going to discover, we don't need those big office spaces. And it was interesting because I was talking to someone last week and he was predicting that the big office spaces will turn more into shared office spaces, and because there's going to be space, and company A may go, we only need half of this. So what do you do with that other half? You turn it into a shared space. Maybe it's one that somebody rents all the time, or maybe it's something that they, can do on a temporary basis like they do with your company. But I think office space is really going to be something that changes a lot in the next year, probably.
To me, I think space in general is going to change a lot. Now, for example, look at education. Our kids at the moment are learning from home.
Right.
So it is like super hard to change the education system, right? Obviously, we have a lot of challenges worldwide with engaging our kids around education system that hasn't been changed for, let's call it, a while. And, it's obvious we need to implement changes in that. But that would be like super hard, and is super hard for many years. On the other hand, e-learning is developing like rapidly these days, and does not require physical space. So maybe our kids are also not going to go to school every day. Maybe they're also going to start doing part of their learning at home. We talked about academic education. So university definitely we're going to see changing that. And then, it opens up the door of what do you do with all this space of their dorms or whatever it is. So maybe, all of a sudden they have to, they're allowing more and more students to get I don't know, whatever.
Right.
Sponsor
Yeah.
after that.
I think universities are really going to make some big shifts because they've been trending more towards kind of the online distance learning, but it's in a lot of ways, at least here in the United States, it gets kind of scoffed at. Well, sure, you got an E, that's not like going to Harvard or even, University of Georgia or what, they're like, ooh. But now, it's obviously working. Well, it'll be interesting to see, does it really work? Because of course, my big thing is, well, how do you know that kid was actually who took that test? Well, there's certainly ways that, with technology that you can do things like that. But I think there's going to be so many that go, you know what, I want a degree from Harvard, from, wherever, Oxford, all these various places, but I don't want to move there. And so they will take it as e-classes, and obviously, there are some where you have to physically be in, performing arts, chemistry, things like that. But do you need to, can you go to a city and do that? Like a meeting space like yours, maybe you've got 10 students who come in and do the experiments for a week. And then they're done. Do you really need all that space? And so I definitely see, especially with higher ed, that this is something that is really going to dramatically change because kids can't afford, in-state tuition. They can't go live in the dorms because they're having to work. They might be the primary breadwinners for their families, or even just assisting them. Remote learning, things like that. But it's interesting. I have a friend who is an 8th grade, and they call it something different, but she's an 8th grade teacher in China. And she's a U.S. citizen that's teaching at a private school over there. And one of the things that they have discovered through all of this is that they're remote students who were having to travel long distances, who were really having a lot of trouble, are now excelling because they're home. They're not spending all that time traveling. And she said, so they're going to stick with it. It won't be back to, okay, well, the semester starts again, so it's back to normal. They really are adapting. And I think you're right. I think, around the world, we're going to be making changes with education.
Yeah. I was starting to say that my friend's daughter is a dancer, and she's doing dance lessons over Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not necessarily, she just bought this thing, which is like, the stick. I don't know how you call it. And then she has it in her room, and she works with it. And also, I think that another thing that is important to talk about is like how you divide a big group into small teams.
Right.
I think we're going to see a lot of focus on teamwork. And like, for example, if we're used to having multiple people from different, let's think about global companies. By the way, a lot of our clients at the moment are big corporates, like the Google, the Amazon, Facebook, Weeks, I don't know, like Monday, big ones, Pfizer, PepsiCo, JP Morgan, a lot of others. I think we're going to potentially see them divide into smaller teams and develop the ability of the teams to kind of bring an impact and to be more independent, to have its own dynamic, decide on their own routines, as well as be able to decide, like, for example, if everybody have to come in, or people can join from remote or whatever it is. We are focusing a lot on team leaders because we want to empower them to take these decisions. And I think, it makes sense. Like, there's the famous Jeff Bezos quote talking about the two pizza tray theory. You don't want to have more than that. It kind of aligns with the current restrictions of in Israel, because we are already starting to go out. So a meeting can host no more than 8 people. So I think a total match the pizza thing. So I think we are going to see teams working more independently because they have to, because they're not in the office, and they're kind of, which is on one hand a good thing. But then I think one of the big challenges of big corporates is internal communication, rather than having everybody work in silos. So I wonder if we're going to see these big alignments happening face to face in like places that allow. By the way, we also have the big spaces, but there are lots of spaces that allow many people at once. Or we're going to see the big gatherings, or kind of the multiple attendees meetings going online, and saying, okay, like if you want to have everybody, all the decision makers together, and there are more than 8 people, like it's big. Let's do it online. Then we can adopt online methodologies, like voting, or there are a lot of this kind of it triggers this, like this change can trigger a lot of other processes that change the dynamics of corporates, like democratize decision making, for example, maybe hopefully as part of having everybody online together. Then everybody's already online. Why don't we ask a question, and then you have to choose, and then in real time we know what you think about XYZ, and then it's like a very good way to enhance decision making, which is, in my opinion, one of the biggest challenges. I will be nice and call it challenges of companies, of startup companies, sometimes characterized by young leaders and and fast growth, which make decision making like a big challenge for them.
Yeah. And it's going to be interesting, just as technology is going to have to change. I mean, Zoom, great example. Just in the last month, people have been, they've been talking about security issues, all sorts of things. And so, this could be a great opportunity for companies like yours to say, okay, we're not using Zoom, or we're using a different version of Zoom that we know is safe, that we know is secure, all of those various things. But people are going to have to change too. I mean, the managers that are used to, shall we say, micromanaging and having every one of their employees where they can reach out and touch them, what are they going to do when they can't? And there are certainly employees that at least, to start with, don't do well with not having that structure, having that supervision. And that is tricky. I think every person who has started their own business has discovered that, do I have to get up? Do I have to put closing? Can I leave my jammies on? What do I have to have office hours? That was one of the things. I've been in business for myself now over 20 years, and having rules, having structure was one of the big things that I found. So to tell my clients, I have office hours. And, they are from here to here. If you want something that's evening, if you want something that's weekend, that's great, but it will cost you extra. And of course, they figured out really quickly, it could probably wait till regular time. But, so it takes learning how to have that structure. I was talking with somebody who is working almost twice as much as when she went into an office, because she's just there. She has nothing else to do right now. And she was getting really stressed because she's overworking, and so she needs to kind of do that pushback of, whoever, and say, okay, you know what, I'm still only going to do 8 hours a day, and some things like that. So I think it is going to take some big changes to have this.
Yeah. I want to refer to what you said before about micromanagement, because I think it's an important upside for the coronavirus. I think we also had an interesting interview with a psychologist called Moritz Kalf from the School of Life, and he was talking about no more micromanagement. Once you move to working from home, because working from home requires a whole different level of trust. You see the people in their, whatever, it's pajamas, or it's just their t-shirt, or it's just having to allow their kid in because they need to give him lunch or whatever it is. It's requiring a different level of acceptance and understanding that this person needs to do their tasks, and you're not going to be able to tell him when exactly, or when to do the break, to take a break, or to make sure that he sits and does it in the next half an hour.
Right.
And I think looking at where we are at the moment as a society, I think it's very healthy for us to lose this, lose the constant effort to control everything, and trust people a little bit, and make sure they do what they need in a way that's good for them too.
Right. Yeah, because somebody might be able to do the job in 6 hours, or somebody else, it might actually take 10. I mean, you never know. And it is trickier right now, because not only were we forced to work from home, many people have their kids home too. And so they are having to homeschool and do all these things. And so that does make it a little bit more difficult. So, when schools are back in session, that will change things a bit. But yeah, being able to be flexible. And of course, the big thing is absolutely positively going to have to be communication, where somebody says, okay, task X needs to be done by Friday at noon. I don't care when you get it done or how you get it done. It just needs to be done Friday at noon. That's the key, as opposed to, I need to see what you're doing on Tuesday at 3 on that. Now, you might need updates. I mean, obviously there's a lot of things, but I think in so many offices, it's very different how all of these procedures have worked when you're right there.
Totally agree. Yeah. And then you talking about going back to technology. Then you might want to have to deploy like project management technology that you might not
that
have.
tracks their online time or whatever.
Not necessarily tracks the time. I'm against it. I think
yeah, because and there's certainly ways around that anyway. So
it's more effective. Like you need to think something to get done. You don't need the person to do
right. If it gets done, it gets done.
whatever. But I think it requires a different way of managing it. So, for example, I can share, what we do. We have, first of all, we're meeting every morning for like a morning stand-up of the team. We are considering, because our US team is currently, like my marketing team is based in Tel Aviv. But I have some volunteers because people are on furlough because the venues are obviously closed. So some of our amazing employees suggested to volunteer in the marketing team because we have tons of work, kind of changing everything for the day after, because it is totally, it's a different world we're going to get into afterwards, and we want to, take it into account, and we changed all our marketing strategy. And then we're now working with the US team, so we're going to have it in the afternoon. But anyhow, like a daily meeting for everybody. First, I want to see how people are doing. One of my team, she's French, and her friend, a friend of her in Paris, just died. So you want to feel the people.
And we need that. I always tell people we are social people, and even if it's just excuse me, checking in online like this, we need that. Yeah. Otherwise, we are going to be working in our jammies with our hair. Yeah,
totally. And I'm fine with them with their jammies and hair. No problem. But it allows us to feel our to function as a team. First of all,
right.
We're still a team, although we have seen each other for almost a month and a half, and then because reality is constantly changing. I will not repeat all the tips about you need to kind of rephrase reality for the people, or kind of explain what's happening. But what we are doing is we're looking at what we do, and we ask ourselves, does it still hold? Does it still hold? Okay, we were talking about millennials and how we need to pamper them, and then we want the meeting place to be to be equivalent to investment in your people, but we're going to come out of it in a market of employers. So how so probably talking about winning the talent in that all the time, maybe it's not the right messaging. So what do we want to say instead? And then we also talk to our clients and we ask them, for example, and then we just enrich each other. So this is like one routine, which is the morning thing, and then the morning meeting. And then we have how we manage our projects. So we work with Monday. I don't know if you're familiar. It's there are a lot of different project management or team management softwares out there.
Okay.
It's a big one. It's Israeli, but it's global. Obviously, it's a unicorn right now. And then on top we have management meetings, and we have monthly reports, and we have some strategic discussions where we decide to invite the CEO because we want him to be in the loop of where we're going, which is not where we used to be. Like today, for example, we talked about affiliates. So we have a huge network of affiliates that we work with. But now we say, okay, so our affiliates are mainly about meeting and events. But how about if people come out of this and they need a daily office? Just because, they need one day where they are, focusing on whatever it is they need to focus on. Our place is good for it. We are everything that is relevant to the other use cases, but also to this one. And because our smaller offices at the moment, we don't want to use them for all our offices are like the different rooms are not small, but if you want to keep 2 meters away,
right.
Then the small ones can serve 2 people maybe, or 3 people. So why don't we suggest people to take them as a temporary office So this brings us to a different affiliate strategy, and it goes on and on. But it's I think the trigger for this constant evolvement in like the day after strategy is rooted in these daily meetings. Like it's constant observation, constant brainstorming.
Well, and I think because we're operating differently now, people are coming up with different ideas. You know, we were used to our little silos. You know, oh, I'm the marketing person, I'm only supposed to be thinking about this. But, you know, because now things are all kind of topsy-turvy, we are thinking about, well, wait a minute, what if we did this? And what if these two people work together? Or, you know, all of those various things, you know, and you know, I think, as you said, you know, as bad as some of the things are with this, and you know, and we don't ever want to downplay that, I think it is going to have so many great ramifications that come out of it. You know, I think there's probably going to be a lot of companies that decide to downsize, or, you know, have already downsized and are going to say, you know what, we didn't need that many people. And so it could be a good excuse for them to not bring people back on board, or to go totally online. I mean, you know, I think there's a lot of retail places that are now saying, you know what, maybe we don't need to have these big physical locations, or we have a small one, but everything else is online. I mean, all sorts of things. And so I think there's going to be a lot of changes, as we were saying, within the next year or so because of this. But I think a big part of it is going to be, people are going to say, do we really want to go back to having a lot of people in one space? You know, and you know, because even if they find, you know, something that you know, stops COVID-19, there will be other cooties that come along. I mean, you know, that's just the way it happens. You know, even if it's just something as simple as flu or chickenpox or whatever, you know, do we really want all those people in one space? Or is it better to have them all off and then they come together every once in a while?
I agree. I wonder what would happen to the really big events, like, for example, you know, South by Southwest.
Right. And big sporting events and big concerts. And, you know, we were talking about that with friends. I'm not a crowd person. I mean, you know, having somebody right here who's going, you know, I'm not real thrilled about anyway. And now having, you know, I'm like, you know, and I just don't like crowds. I mean, you know, so I wasn't a concert, but I'm a sports person. And not going to sporting events, you know, but so you change them. You know, we were talking about with my friends how, you know, airlines are changing the seating, and they might actually go back to where you're not just squished in there like little sardines. Maybe, you know, and maybe you pay a smidge more. Yeah. Maybe they just put more flights. I mean, that's, you know, that's the way to do it.
I think the way I see it, like, airlines are going to dramatically change. Like,
not they're going to have to.
Yeah, but also like our flights culture. Like me, for example, in the past 5 years, I've been traveling at least once a month, which is insane.
Right.
I only like now I have enough time to think how insane it is.
Yeah. Did you really need to be doing that?
It's you know, I was managing teams in Brazil, in Russia, in Madrid, in London, in you know, the US, and so I was back and forth constantly. But you know, like, to me, the number one thing is ecology, because I do feel like, you know, well, you mentioned that's like looking at, so one like pollution. So one thing is cars not driving. Other things is plane not flying, which is also crazy. And
and we had gotten to the point where it was like, we'll just fly there. We'll just fly there. You know, and
people don't appreciate it. Like, I see my kids, for example. I have 2 teenagers at home. So, you know, do they really appreciate their flights where they're traveling every year a couple of times, like a weekend there and a weekend there, and like a couple of here? I don't know. Like, I do think that, you know, a little bit of humbleness and simplicity and just it's not like less prosperity, but it's just you know, being more picky about the things you do that are not necessarily, and you know, really exploiting nature is, I think, a good thing.
Well, and I'm also hoping that many people really think, you know what? This was okay, spending time with our families, with our spouses. We didn't kill each other. Now, granted, there might be a pretty good divorce rate, but I think I am hoping that people are like, you know what? It was not bad spending time with my kids. And so, more of that. And that's what I like, when you look outside and you see families together.
Yeah.
Now, they're doing it because they're like, we got to get out of the house. We just got to get out of the house. But hopefully in 6 months, it's like, we enjoyed this. We're going to continue this.
Mm-hmm.
And same with friends, and all of those. I was talking to somebody who has gone back to handwriting letters, and she got out like her last 6 years worth of Christmas cards and is just going through to all of them and saying, you know what? Haven't talked with you in a while, or haven't done more than just sending the Christmas card with the printed letter in it, if even that. And she's handwriting letters, so yeah, maybe in a lot of ways we're going to get back to a simpler time, but when we use technology, we use it more efficiently.
I totally agree. I think we are shifting from abuse to use. This is what I want to, or from abuse to leverage, because there are great things about technology, but I think we were kind of overwhelmed by it, and I think actually again millennials are kind of have been like the first wake-up call for humanity to start shifting towards more healthy habits in some ways. Not everything. A lot of things that millennial related are on the other side of the scale, and a lot of don't know how to call it, like greediness, maybe, if I'm being blunt, or self-focus, but on the other hand, balance, awareness, the need to focus on the people. It's also a millennial driven feature.
Oh yeah.
So I believe we are moving from a misuse, at least, of resources, to something that is much smarter. And I'm very optimistic about the other side of COVID-19, and I would be quite disappointed if things are not changed as much as I.
I'm a smidge more pessimistic, where I think we're going to forget, and we'll go back to the way things were. Hopefully not, and hopefully we will go, you know what, did we really need to buy that, to do that, to, all of those various things, and hopefully that answer in many cases will be, no, yeah, we were okay.
Or and like, maybe do we need to develop it ourselves? Maybe we have some connections we can leverage on the other side of the planet, and maybe it's a good thing to help make them benefit of our ideas as well, and not be like stick to our own ideas. And the idea of globalization is not owning everywhere, the business everywhere. It's about, I think, in my opinion, collaborating. And for example, at Meeting Place, we're also looking at partnerships. We were thinking that we're going to get there around 2021, but we are starting to work on partnership with landlords, for example.
Oh, right. Yeah, that makes sense. So cool. Well, oh my gosh. We are at the top of the hour. We had a little blurbette in there where we had to edit some things out. I had a little issue on my end, and so I think we're on time. But this has been so much fun, and I love this. And what we have to do is touch base 6 months, a year, and just see where things are. I think this will be great to really see what has happened. I do think that within the next month, as I mentioned, we're recording this towards the end of April. I'm thinking June 1st-ish. Most of the world will be getting back to, not so much of the quarantine, the forced quarantine, things like that. But hopefully we're learning from this. We don't need to be crammed into spaces. We don't need to, have the latest and greatest technology in the world, but we do need to have things that work for us and work for our businesses, and figuring out ways to do that, I think is going to be a lot of fun.
I agree, totally.
So Yael, tell us how people connect with you and find you online, since that's the only thing we can do right now.
Yeah, so the easiest way is like LinkedIn or Facebook. I'm Yael Shafrir, YaelShafrir, on all platforms. And then otherwise, go to meetinplace.com, meet in place, and then contact us. I'll also see that. I think this is it
Perfect.
in terms of how to contact. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, do you have any final thoughts for everyone?
I think like we ended up with the question, right? Like the big one about how massive the change is going to look like. And, you know, I just want to encourage everyone to make this change and not to be afraid of, you know, take a leap of faith towards a different future. I think we all deserve it.
Perfect. I love it. Well, I'm Deb Creer. I've been having an absolutely fascinating discussion with Yael Shafrir. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.